The word Renaissance means to be reborn. It is used to describe an enormously important movement of cultural rebirth that began in Italy in the early 1300s, gradually spread northward to other European countries, and finally ended around 1650. The Renaissance was a unique period of history, an era when people actively sought to improve their own cultures by attempting to recapture some of the greatness of the long-forgotten civilizations of ancient Greece and Rome. The Renaissance was a time when new styles of art were developed, when the first Protestant religions were born, when big advances in science expanded basic understanding of our solar system and of human life itself. The Renaissance was also the time when books first became widely available, and was when the first great voyages of world exploration began.
So it was this increase in trade that led to a rebirth, or reawakening of this knowledge. This is literally what the word Renaissance means. It literally means rebirth. This happened because the trade led to a growth of the city-states, particularly in Italy. The trade also led to an exchange of ideas which had an effect on scholars, the people who were educated. The Crusades brought back many ideas and objects from the Byzantine Empire, and as a result, there was a new interest in Greek and Roman learning.
The Reformation was partly an outgrowth of the Renaissance and the humanist movement. One of these humanists, an important Renaissance scholar who shared the ideals of the Reformation, was Desiderius Erasmus, also known as Erasmus of Rotterdam.
And Erasmus, who is the leading figure of his age, really intellectually, he's the person to whom everyone looks as the consummate scholar, the man who knows the most about the writings that make up the heart of Christianity.
Erasmus was ordained a Catholic priest in 1492, but eventually found religious life distasteful. He turned to a secular life and devoted himself to teaching and writing. He translated the New Testament into Latin. It was a more accurate translation than the Latin Vulgate used by the Catholic Church.
Erasmus's influence was the greater for his being able to make himself popular with groups of people who might, in fact, otherwise have had reason to oppose him. But his example, his idea that if we study the ancient texts of the religion, of the faith, more thoroughly, with greater desire to understand what Jesus really said and how Jesus really lived, that we could change the church as it is, that idea is a really powerful one, and people like Luther and Zwingli and later Calvin really pick up from that. In some ways, without humanism, the Reformation would have been inconceivable. It's the intellectual ancestor of the Reformation.
Because his writings made such an important contribution, Erasmus is sometimes called the father of the Reformation. He is also charged with having laid the egg that Luther hatched. He half admitted the truth of that charge, but said he had expected quite another type of bird. He never took sides with Luther in his Reformation movement.
Another idea that grew in this period was humanism. Humanism was a movement in which learning was important. These new ideas would be taught in new schools that were outside of church control. Humanists wanted people to be the center of learning, not the church and God. In the early 1300s, the Italian city-states grew from this increasing trade. Cities like Naples, Milan, Florence and Rome all became wealthy, and these new ideas were at the forefront of their development. Eventually, this new thinking spread to Northern Europe.
When the Renaissance began in the early 1300s, the northern part of the Italian peninsula was dotted with a number of city-states. A city-state being a small nation ruled by a city. One of the best-known city-states was Venice, which had grown exceedingly wealthy and powerful due to its trade links with Asia. Another important city-state was Florence. It was an important financial center that became a center for Renaissance literature and art as well. During the Renaissance, except for the papal states that were ruled by the Pope, the Italian city-states were ruled by upper-class families. Florence, for example, came to be ruled by the Medici family, owners of the largest banking empire in Europe. The Medicis and other powerful families like them used some of their enormous wealth to encourage and support scholars, writers, scientists, and artists. And it was thanks to patrons like them that Renaissance learning and art was able to truly flourish in Italy.
Of course, things like the Renaissance don't happen by accident. It takes some very motivated and powerful people to create change. In this case, wealthy patrons of the arts would promote new ideas and new artists. In Florence, Lorenzo de' Medici and his family were very influential indeed. Lorenzo was immensely powerful, and was eventually the most important patron of the arts in Italy. Both Leonardo da Vinci and Michelangelo owed their success to his influence.
Meanwhile, the Medici, at this time, were not the official rulers of Florence, but they held sway to a powerful degree. They controlled the Signoria, the council, and they were popular. Lorenzo the Magnificent here is not the work of Da Vinci. It is ascribed to the Italian school, but it captures the brute force of Lorenzo's personality, and also the feeling of duplicity which inspired Niccolo Machiavelli's book, The Prince. Read it and taste the tart irony of this acerbic fellow who has had such influence on politics of every age since. Pope Sixtus was the head of the rival Pazzi family. He had all the vices linked to the Renaissance popes, and he was a bitter enemy of the Medici clan. He hatched out the Pazzi plot and planned to murder Lorenzo and his younger brother, Giuliano. Jacopo de' Pazzi was selected to kill them. But alas, the plot failed, and one conspirator fled all the way to Constantinople. But only briefly, for the long tentacles of the Medici vengeance sought him out. The Ottomans returned him to their business partners, the Medici, where the unfortunate wretch was executed in the town square. This is the political maelstrom which swirled around Da Vinci as he worked.